The battle of wizards and warriors continues with iron swords. The evil wizard Malkill will take the shape of the earth, wind, water, and fire. Farewell! The fate of the world is in your hands!
You're listening to the Piercing Wizard podcast, and I'm your host, Ryan Willett. I'm a professional body piercer with 20 years experience. I travel around the world teaching technique and safety classes, and I'm a member of the Association of Professional Piercers. Listen in as I talk to my friends and colleagues about our industry so we can all stay sharp. Hi everybody, how you doing? Thanks for coming back to another episode of the Piercing Wizard podcast. This episode will be an interview with a piercer named Cozmo. Cozmo lives and pierces in the Atlanta area, and he's been on the show before on episode 147 if you want to go back and listen to a little bit more with him. Cozmo is one of those people where if you're inside that APP bubble, if you're inside the structure and you know how some of it works behind the scenes, you'll hear Cozmo's name come up a lot. Cozmo's involved in a ton of work for the APP, lots of different committees. We're going to talk all about that, his work with the membership committee, his work as an instructor and as a mentor, so we're going to get into that in just a minute. Also, if you're interested in Cozmo's stuff, he has a YouTube page. I really like to mention the stuff that people do outside of body piercing because I don't think it's always healthy for your entire personality to be body piercing. You're listening to the Piercing Wizard podcast, by the way. But he's got a great YouTube page where he rides around on his motorcycle and kind of checks out different coffee shops in the area. So if you're interested in that, you can check it out on YouTube. It's Daily Cozworks, Coz with a Z. And works with an E. So Daily Cozworks if you want to check out more Cozmo stuff that's not piercing related. But we get into it. We get into a lot of the different stuff that Cozmo's doing, so we'll get into that in just a minute. I've always got new stuff coming and going for you. I had that new Hafadravia video that just published recently, and I started working on a new video that'll be out sometime during December 2024, all about helix piercings, and I'm going to call it Helix Cubed because it's 3 different examples of triple helix piercings. So one example will be kind of a deeper helix, almost like a flat, like a triple flat project. One will be with like a triple titanium cluster and how to get spacing just right with different shapes of clusters. And then one, I'm actually piercing a triple helix with rings. I know that rings are sometimes seen as the devil, but I'm going to show you that they can be viable for a lot of different things, as long as it's appropriate for the person's anatomy and their lifestyle and you properly explain aftercare. So that should be an interesting video for you. That'll be out before the end of this year. Sometime around the end of the year, I'm also planning to publish another Ask Us Anything episode with Lola. She'll be over here for the holiday season, first trip on her U.S. work visa, so really excited about that. But while she's here, we'll record some content. If you're interested in submitting questions, you can do that through the link right in the description of this episode. You can do that through my Patreon page, through the Body Art Education by Ryan Willett Facebook page, or through my website, ryanpba.com. But for now, let's go ahead and get into this episode with Cozmo.
Hello.
Hello.
I can't tell if my camera is on too. There we go. What's up, man?
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Apparently Zoom doesn't want to work on my computer, so I've cleverly placed my phone on my computer.
No one will be able to tell.
I know. It's magic.
How you been?
I've been good. Yeah, just busy. What about you?
We're going to probably announce it within the next couple of days, but Lola and I have been working on getting her a U.S. work visa for like a year and a half, and we just got it this morning. So it's
sick.
Yeah, so she's going to start coming over here probably for Christmas, and she'll be able to like pierce here. It'll be great.
Yeah, that's awesome. Congrats.
Thanks. So, are you going to run for the board?
I'm not.
Oh.
I think I'm gonna next time.
Okay.
Baron will still be on the board.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think both of us should be at the same time because one of us should be heading that committee. And there's literally no one else like currently on the committee. Everybody that could have left. Like we lost Christina, Pablo, and Cody in like this last chain, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we basically have like almost entirely new blood right now. So it's just like talking to Baron about that. It seemed like bad timing, but I think the next election being so soon kind of seems like, all right, just postpone this and see what shakes out with that.
Sure.
But yeah.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that you've obviously thought it through, is like the main point I would like to make, because it seems like a lot of people talk big about like, I want to do all this stuff, and then they get nominated and they're like, oh shit, now you want me to actually do it. No, 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 no.
That's kind of what I've been doing with people, getting them to volunteer in general. Like Josh and Tyler had a bunch of complaints in Vegas 2 years ago.
Yeah,
And I was like, well, what are you gonna do about it? And now both of them are on membership and like
yeah,
now understand how slow things happen and how hated you are. And they've
yeah,
kind of calmed down a little bit. So that's
yeah.
kind of been like my big thing lately. It's like if you have complaints, like what are you gonna do? Are you gonna do something about it? Or are you just gonna or are
Right.
you gonna at least like at the very least, are you gonna figure out like the like widely available information on the website about how committees work? Like if you're mad about the specific thing, you're not mad at the APP, you're mad at this specific person and their name is listed on this
Yeah,
website and you could
yeah,
just contact them. Not
yeah.
like it's like not like the Wizard of Oz. There's nobody hiding behind the curtain. It's
I think it's really good to pull like cynics and complainers into the process so that they can see that it's like we're all lost in the process.
yeah,
Like
just
you can
trying.
help or you can not help, but those are the only two options.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of, yeah, I've been kind of trying to do a lot of that. Well, it's also like, I was talking to Beth about it, and she was like, "Oh, I've come to terms with that 15 years ago." But like the amount of times that people complain to me and they're like, "The APP doesn't do this," and I'm like, "Man, you're talking about me." Like,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
like they're
Yeah.
unaware that like,
We are the APP.
yeah,
There's
it's like
there are
it's
no
your
adults in the
peers.
room.
It's like your peers. It's the people that you're going to visit, the people you're having dinner with, and it's like
Yeah.
I think it's also like only certain roles are really public, like people will be like, oh, the APP Instagram is this and that. And I'm like, hey, that's me too. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, sorry, bud. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, that's
Well,
kind of where my head.
before we get too deep into it, well, I appreciate you sharing that with me. Before we
Yeah.
get too deep into it, I want to start. You've been on before, and I want to welcome you back. And I know that you are an exceptionally busy piercer, so I appreciate you finding the time for me. Introduce yourself, please.
Okay. My name is Cosmo. I work in Atlanta, Georgia at Virtue and Vice and have a few different roles with the APP, mainly a membership coordinator with the membership committee, and I'm on the social media committee. I help run the Instagram page specifically, and then sometimes core curriculum online, and sometimes camp APP, and always a mentor at conference.
Is that all?
Yeah, it turns out it's a whole lot of jobs.
Yeah.
While a couple of those things are year round, I tend to not like be at every event every single year.
Mhm.
This year was the exception. I went to every single one, but yeah.
So, like that kind of it sparks a few memories for me because currently it's people running for the board season, and it brings up some of the memories of like when I was on the board for just one term, uh like kind of seeing how the sausage was made and stuff. And one of my roles when I was on the board was outreach committee and trying to like talk to piercers in individual cities and get them involved in outreach. And I remember you helped me out with a medical conference in like the Atlanta area.
Yeah, yeah.
And I always appreciated that. And I've always kind of like I've always felt really confident in your name being attached to projects where we were kind of mentioning it a little bit before we started recording that it doesn't always feel like we're the adults in the room because like we're piercers and we like to just kind of like be a little bit easy breezy and stuff, but it's also good to know that some of us can get like serious when we need to. And I appreciate that. Like if I see your name attached to a project, I have a pretty good sense that it's going to work out.
Well, thank you. It's surprising to be an adult, but here we are.
Yeah. Did you, when you got into piercing, did you get into piercing to be like uh Mr. Serious professional piercer, or did you get into it when you were like younger and you just didn't want to work in a different job? Because for me it was like, well, I lost my hot topic job, so now what am I gonna do? And it was like, oh,
Yeah, yeah.
piercer.
No, mine was honestly, I don't know if she would want to be mentioned, but I was getting pierced a good bit, but I went to Colo, and I got pierced by Gigi Gitz.
I'm a
And it
big
was
fan
just
of
super
Gigi.
cool. Yeah, like I was just like, it was just like the coolest thing ever. I was like, hold on, this lady has like a motorcycle and a car, and like
Yeah.
this is a job. And it was like at the time, I was like almost nobody knows I was preparing to be a firefighter, and I
Yeah.
was like, well, this seems literally way cooler than running into fires. So yeah, like I had been getting tattooed at a shop a bunch, just casually mentioned it to them. And apparently they were planning to poach me for their next piercing apprenticeship anyway. Like I
Awesome.
worked next door at a coffee shop, and they were a cash only business, and we're basically looking for any trustworthy body that wouldn't steal their cash. And the guy that served them their coffee seemed like he wouldn't steal from them. So yeah, like I walked in and they were planning on walking in the other door. So it was kind of
That's
fate.
awesome.
Yeah, yeah,
I never even knew that. That's really cool.
yeah.
So, how long have you been piercing at this point?
27 or 2007. So was that 17 years
Wow. Okay.
in art school math?
So if you flash forward to what you're doing now, like what would you say is your primary job within the studio? Is it piercer? Is it mentor? Is it manager? Like how would you define yourself as your role in your studio?
Um, Kind of all of them. Realistically, Bethra takes on all of those roles at all times, and I'm kind of like the proxy. She has a lot of places to be. So ultimately, I have to be her when she can't be her. It might be training a piercer, it might be fixing a piercing, it might be doing a really, like, I don't know, advanced piercing. Sometimes it's like making a panic order because we missed it and she's in Brazil or something, But it's just kind of, I don't know, being the glue when she can't be or when she needs a little bit extra glue. Just,
Yeah.
I'm basically like owner support. I feel weird saying I'm the manager because I could barely manage myself, but I keep the place from burning down, even though I didn't become a firefighter.
Well, there you go. I think piercers are really good at like taking maybe some of the skills that they don't enact at home and like enacting them really well in a professional environment, like in the studio, very clean and very timely and all, I can manage a million projects. And then at home, it's like I can barely just keep up with dirty dishes.
Yeah. I feel like I like overdo it at home, and that's why I can do it there. Like everything has its place, and I have very few belongings because I'm like disorder like drives me crazy, which is probably why I'm such an annoying manager. I'm like labeling everything, and there's signs everywhere, and everything has its own drawer, and yeah,
I think that's good because there was like a big part of piercing for a long time that was like anti-establishment and anti-job sort of thing. It was like yes, it was a job. People were paying their bills, but I think a lot of people did it because they didn't want to work a serious job. And then the
yeah.
job became serious around them. And some piercers flourished with that, and some piercers didn't
Yeah.
really like it.
Some people definitely timed out. I mean, some people are still in the industry and having a hard time with it for sure. It's I think it's like people really love that this is a very serious business money, but don't necessarily want to do this as a very serious business activities.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's fun making the money, but it's not fun paying the bills.
Yeah.
So, like for someone who's been piercing for a while, you probably have like a perspective of different eras of body piercing. So, to put it in like the broadest strokes, like before COVID and after COVID, like what do you feel like your piercer job is like today? Because I feel like it's so different from it was just back in like 2019. Like I love doing earlobes. It's awesome, but it's just such a different job now with I do the rare stuff from time to time, but the majority of my day now is just earlobes over and over.
Yeah. I think that it's completely different for me. Like even from the last time, I recently listened to the first time I was on the show because somebody mentioned it. I went from being like a really high volume piercer that was doing a lot of nostrils and a lot of earlobes to kind of only doing the complicated stuff. Um, I think it's as I gained experience, I suddenly became the only guy in the room that could do those things. And with a limited schedule, limited amount of time, I'm only in the studio 3 days a week. They tend to get pretty full with doing just that stuff. So generally, I'm doing like quote unquote projects or like kind of heavier genital work, or even just like I'm the last set of eyes on difficult anatomy or troubleshooting, or yeah, a lot of fixing is happening. Just from everywhere people are coming in. I'm piercing more piercers, just kind of I think it's more advanced now, and generally. I also always work with our shop apprentice, so a lot of the simple stuff does get pushed to him just so he can eat. It makes more sense for him to be doing the earlobes when he has a very short list of things he can do.
Sure, sure. Well, that kind of sounds awesome. Like I I feel like I would have a lot to offer clients, but I don't think I'm getting asked for quite so many interesting things. You in the Atlanta area, just like the population of it and everything. Like I can only imagine all the fun stuff you might get asked for. Like I get asked for cool, fun, challenging stuff too. But I think like just the style of piercing has changed a lot in my area, and like I'm fine with it. It's just very different for me.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of studios are experiencing that mostly because as we're moving fine jewelry into the studios, people are coming in for fine jewelry things. You know, they want nice earlobe piercings, they want big diamonds or big pearls, and
Yeah,
we kind of got to follow that trend. It is becoming more of that. More and more studios have fine jewelry in the name, um, and that's kind of what people want. Like those people that are after diamonds aren't generally after heavy projects. I think typically, you know,
right.
but yeah,
Maybe one day
yeah,
it'll just be like massive genital projects
yeah.
covered in
They'll
like
like
platinum and
the worlds will
diamonds.
collide. We'll be doing
Yeah.
genital piercings with like pearls and diamonds. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you, it's probably too early to really say it because like I haven't been able to spot it either, but do you have a guess or do you maybe have like a wish list thing for what the next big trend will be? Like when the earlobes thing, I hope it doesn't go away as much as some other trends have gone away. Like I hardly ever do a triple forward helix these days and they were crazy for a long time. I
Yeah,
hope
yeah.
earlobes stick around for a while, but like do you feel like there's something else bubbling out there?
Um, Not that I can tell. I mean, I know what I hope it is. Like, I really hope we kind of delve more into like minimalism in a way because I think those are the projects that tend to actually work out. Um, I remember you once saying just because you can doesn't mean you should. And I see a lot of that just because you can going on, like
Yeah.
massive clusters that don't fit, spiky things that are poking, dangles from things that for sure are going to gather, like just build up. And I'm
Yeah.
hoping it's because people are, that's in trend and people want to do that and they want to impress their friends on the internet. But I'm hoping at some point we like normalize things that are going to work. Like,
Hmm.
I hope we get
Sometimes
back
I
to a
refer
sense
to
of
that
like,
as like the 90s style. Not to say that
yeah,
everything in the 90s worked because a lot of it was experimental to the point of being kind of silly, but
yeah,
that minimal look of less is more, really precise placement and like figuring out some unique things to do with people rather than just kind of like a quantity over quality kind of
yeah,
mentality.
just like dumping it on there.
Yeah.
Whoever has the most full ear won the challenge, but I don't know. I think it takes away a little bit of the like we start to like blur the lines and it's a slippery slope between did that actually fit? Will that actually work? Is that just going to immediately spin? Like those are the kind of things like being like the final person generally in somebody's trying to heal journey. I see a lot of that. I'm like, this has been spinning the whole time. They should have known that this should have been at least a top design with like 2 points or like
Yeah.
2 points where it fixes on, or this should be threaded and not threadless. Like, I know that you don't want to learn how to thread a thing, but like this snapped once and it's going to snap again. And like, I hope we get back to a sense of like longevity.
Yeah. Yeah. Like people looking at something and being like, that's not a good idea. I have a different option for you.
Yeah, yeah. Like, and it's okay to say no. Like, it's like
Yeah.
it takes a lot of confidence to be like, this, you're not suited for this, or this isn't gonna fit. And I think a lot of it also goes into like front of house and like piercer relation or like communication. Um, Having them have the wherewithal to know that that isn't gonna work, or having your process set up to where if they do pick something that doesn't work, you can still pivot. It's not too late. They haven't loaded your statum on a tight schedule.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. So you mentioned that you're mentoring someone. Is it okay for me to mention who it is?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
It's Royce. I think that's super cool because like
Yeah,
I've been keeping tabs on Royce for the last couple of years and through classes and scholarships and all that stuff, and it's just really nice to see him land in such a cool studio and to have really good mentorship. It's really cool, and I want to say like, you know, good job, Royce, for like the hard work, and it's also
yeah,
really cool to
excellent.
see the two of you together.
I mean, yeah, it was definitely a lot of hard work on his part. Like I had no interest in helping somebody realistically, like outside of what I was already doing, because I'm already doing so much. Um, like being in the studio piercing there was kind of my turn off time. Like it's like, oh, I'm not getting emails and whatnot. So but yeah, it was like it was interesting going to conference as a person who I think like myself, I feel like I'm a person who does a lot, and then seeing him there doing more. It's
Hmm.
like, oh, not only were you like running the door at this thing, you have a full class load, and now you're sweeping the floor for some reason. And it's like, it was inspiring. It like he definitely put in the work. So it was like cool. Like it wasn't ultimately my call. Bethra did put him on. And then I think she pretty quickly realized that she's very, very busy and needed some help. So we kind of are splitting the task now.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, that's great to see. So, I don't really have a good segue, but I want to talk about like some of the other 50 things that you're working on.
Yeah.
Um, Part of it is like education. It it seems like piercers just can't get enough education, conferences and classes and webinars and just like meetup groups and all this stuff. It gets great to see piercers like so hungry for knowledge. And you've been a teacher for a while and you're doing more and more curriculum. So what are some of the things that you're focusing on? Because I know it's unrealistic for a piercer to teach everything. So you kind of pick
Yeah.
certain topics that you feel like are maybe aren't getting talked about well enough, or maybe something you're passionate about. So what are some of the things that you're focusing on for education?
Really, it's mostly like human interaction stuff. I think there's the medical side of things. There's like the you and the Brians that know a lot, that are like really informed about that. And I think as an industry, we should let people like, I don't know, show their strengths. Or like, if you know more about something, there's no point in me trying to like compete with that. I should keep elevating you to keep doing that and do the thing that I'm kind of more adept to. And generally, that is human interaction, not like safety stuff, not necessarily even piercing stuff. Um, I've done bedside manner and a grounding course for uh, core essentials and in Vegas a few times now. And I think that's kind of like my bread and butter. Just generally treating people correctly.
Hmm.
I think most of the people that know me, if they are going to compliment me, which is weird that people compliment me, I don't think they're going to compliment a piercing I did. I think they're generally going to compliment me being nice to them or helping them out in some way. And I think we could all try to put that forward. Um, like the more good we put out in there to combat all the bad that's out there, I think the better the world is. So I generally just try to teach courses about that. Like, I'm not going to teach you how to sell something. I'm not going to teach you how to get an angle really good. I'm going to teach you how to treat a person really good, and then hopefully the rest will follow. Hopefully they take a course from like you or Jeff or somebody that can teach them like the actual piercing part. Um, I just want to kind of help with the brain part. And I also recently started doing a studio security class. I did it for the first time at Camp APP last month. That was last month. It's just about like basically keeping yourself and your staff safe, not necessarily the product. I think the product is the least valuable thing in the building. Security cameras, motion sensor lights, like just general protocols, things to make yourself a less desirable target.
Sure.
Because
Well,
as
let
we
me
do,
let me slow it down a little bit because there's
yeah,
a lot to unpack with that. So
yeah.
just to start with the communication thing, like I always like watching those types of classes or like talking to piercers about that specifically because so many piercers have the idea in their mind of what they want a client to get out of it. Some people it's very much like the personal connection. Sometimes it's just like, it's information. Sometimes it's building confidence in all these things. So not to say that like piercers on a whole lack any of that, but what are some of the things that you think might be getting a little bit lost in today's piercing service?
I think people are just generally forgetting that there's a human on the other end of the transaction. It's super transactional. Like you're after the biggest ticket or you're after the best picture, and you're forgetting the fact that there's just a human there.
Yeah.
And none of us wants to be like blatantly upsold. None of us wants to be like coerced. If we can like look at that person like as a mirror of ourselves and treat like others how we want to be treated, I think generally you're going to have a better situation. I will say that I'm in a really lucky situation where the studio has enough notoriety that no matter what I do, bodies are going to come in the door. If there's somebody else handling uh, and like an advertising budget, um, I have a pretty cush situation. So I don't want to like stand on my like, I don't know, on my pedestal and be like, you don't have to hustle for it and you don't have to upsell, because you do. And I do gently, but like I think generally people come in knowing what they want to buy. And if I just make them feel comfortable, make them happy, hopefully make them laugh, they're going to buy that anyway.
Yeah.
We have a huge assortment. I like to show them everything and let them fall where they're going to fall in that, and be stoked no matter what. If they spend 25 or 2,500, I treat them exactly the same, because they might be going through some ups and downs. They might be young and spending 25 today, but old in 10 years. Got like if I'm still doing this in 10 years and spending that 2,500. Um, I think I'm more interested in cultivating those relationships. I'm
Well,
also,
Bethra said something that I really liked the last time I interviewed her, where we were talking about something similar, and she was saying that like, well, if tickets are down or if people are leaning towards something that's more in like the economy kind of category, it doesn't always mean that they're cheap. Sometimes they're just broke. So it's like I don't want to lose sight of that of like it would be kind of rude of me to expect every single person that walks in the door to want to drop everything they have on a piercing. So I want to
Yeah.
be able to be there as like the shop where you know you can always get it done safe and they're going to respect you. And if
Yeah.
people want to get a plain ball or if they want to get like a crazy awesome fancy thing, like I want to be able to give them that safety and that respect either with either option, you know?
Yeah, I mean, we have like a comically large like selection, like everything. You could spend $15 on jewelry. You could spend $5,000 on jewelry. Like,
Yeah.
I think the last time one of our counter people, Sam, shout out to Sam, counted the ends, and there was something over 3,000 end options. Like, it's like the largest assortment I've ever seen in person. So, like,
Yeah.
I'm usually like, man, no matter what you're trying to spend, no matter what you want this to look like, there's an option here for you. And like, obviously, we want to make money, but generally, as like somebody that's pretty high volume, I don't necessarily. I'm not more passionate about them buying something really expensive. I'm usually more passionate about them buying something that's easy to put in.
Hmm.
I'm like, oh yeah, you don't want to make me thread this thing that's shaped like, the entire universe. That's great. Yeah, I love beads. Beads are sick.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I think that like just something as simple as that, like you can screw on a complicated thing. I think that
yeah,
that is like a really specific and almost lost skill at this point because like threadless jewelry is great, but I think a
yeah.
lot of piercers rely on threadless jewelry. And I know that there have been loads of pieces where I've been like, I don't want to order this anymore because it's so annoying to twist and turn on. But it's
Yeah.
like, but it stays really good and it's not it's likely to break or whatever. So
Yeah.
I've got my tricks. I'm sure you have your tricks for screwing on something that's like, a moon or a heart or whatever Lucky Charms shape.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
sometimes it's kind of a pain in the ass.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I think a lot of that, like, I've been doing this with training Royce. It's like if something kind of like very annoying comes in, we usually give it to Royce because it's like the more you do that, the less annoying those things get. Like I
Yeah.
distinctly remember like the beginning part of my career, like doing my damnedest of, if I'm allowed to say damnedest, I just said it twice, but doing my hardest to um avoid selling people CBRs because putting beads in was such a nightmare. But then eventually I was like, all right, I'm just gonna really convince people that these things are rad and then do it all the time until it's easy. And I find myself doing that with other things. It's like, sure, I'll thread a pream onto that. Like absolutely. Like doing those difficult things just does make them less difficult and just overall makes you better. Um,
Yeah.
if you can thread something difficult shaped really easily, then you can for sure thread that bead first go.
Yeah. Um, so just as like piercer personal preference or maybe the policy in your studio, going back to like bedside manner stuff, are you like I want just the client or just the client plus maybe one friend or it's like a party, as many people that want to be in that can fit as possible? Like what's your comfort zone?
Mine is just a client, but mostly because of layout. We used to have much bigger piercing rooms, but during like the COVID times, we created additional piercing rooms by making rooms smaller. So now it's just really tight in there. We also added, we went from like your standard like gynecologist tables that everybody had to big hydraulic tables that like pivot in every direction, and those are just generally more cumbersome.
Mm,
So yeah, it is just the client because of like space constraints, but we usually encourage them to jump on Zoom or jump on like FaceTime with a friend if they want to.
yeah.
Especially if they're in the lobby. Yeah, you can go ahead and talk to them from there. We don't mind.
Mhm.
I would be fine with an additional person if it just wasn't, it would be properly in the way.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got loads of space in my room and I always
Yeah.
just try to still be like, I just want one. I just want one. And it's not so
Yeah.
much for space. It's because like I can't stay patient with like loads of distractions unless it's the client. If the client's got a million questions or whatever, that's all fine. But when it's like the person in the room with them, like just you gotta keep it down a little bit. That's all I ask.
Yeah. I mean, I think it also takes away from your ability to be like the focal point that you need to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like somebody has to be the front man for the band, and
Hmm.
to lead the band. Like
Do you pierce kids?
We pierce starting at 7 and up, but I very rarely get to. Just kind of touching back on what we touched on earlier. I end up getting bogged down with the difficult things, so there's not
Yeah.
really gaps for me to do
Yeah.
that. So I do significantly less than the others, but we do, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm always interested about like the people who are especially conscious of bedside manner. I think that they do some of the best work with kids. Even the people that are like super serious, like I think that they
Yeah,
do a really good job with kids. And I'm always just really curious as to like how people get there. Like if you have siblings or if you're around kids a lot to be able to handle that. Because like I'm an only child, big shock. And
yeah,
I don't have kids, big shock.
yeah,
And like I really like interact. I'm a six and up studio, so like
yeah,
pretty close. But like I like having interactions with like little kids and it's kind of fun. Like I don't treat them like a little kid. I just treat them like a small person. And
yeah.
it's sometimes it's fun. It's almost more fun sometimes with kids than with grown-ups. Sometimes it's a nightmare
Yeah.
though.
I think like part of being in like a major city is that kids are kind of little grown-ups. They are introduced to the reality of the world pretty young. And I feel like the kids that come into our studio are very aware of that. They tend to be like super polite and they have a lot of wherewithal. And my family's from New York originally, and I kind of see that same thing. Like we were doing things that were like a little older pretty early on, and I think it's just kind of the same thing happening. Like when I do get kids, they're behaving like teenagers despite being seven, at least what I think a teenager should be, which is ironically also how I behave. So we
Yeah.
meet in the middle, I guess.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, I have like kid interest. So like I play video games, I listen to pop punk, I'm a child, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. It's good to be able to like find some sort of common ground. Like you know, I feel like it's probably more of an age gap than I expect, but like sometimes I'll ask kids about like, what's your favorite dinosaur or whatever. Kind of depends
Yeah.
on the age. Like if you ask a 6-year-old what their favorite dinosaur is, you're probably going to get a really excited response. But if you ask a 10-year-old what their favorite dinosaur is, they're going to be like, I'm 10. I'm not a baby.
Yeah. No, absolutely. That's for sure. I
Um,
mean, no, go ahead.
no, no, you.
Yeah, I don't like, I wish I interacted with them more, but it's so rare now. Like I'm always getting like like we're also bordering a side of town where like a lot of the leather bars are and whatnot. Like we're pretty close to that. So I get a lot of those clients. I end up doing like tons of like big gauge CPR stuff while the kids are across the hall with
Yeah.
Royce or one of the other guys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool. That must be a fun mix, customer service wise, like out in the lobby. It must be a fun experience being able to kind of like bounce between those different poles.
Oh yeah, I think you have to kind of make yourself like a really central figure to where you appeal to both without changing who you are. That's kind of my goal. Like I'm acceptable for this guy and I'm also acceptable for this kid at all
Hmm.
times so that I don't really have to flip flop. I'm just like, I don't know.
That's cool. Um, Anything else on your mind for like the bedside manner part of it that you'd want to talk about?
No, that's really it. Be nice to people. That's it.
Okay. Well,
Like
that
first and
that works.
foremost, full class, just be nice. If they're mean, be nice. If they're rude, be nice. If they're nice, be nicer.
Yeah.
Just be nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That helps because like it seems like a good indicator for your customer service, your bedside manner are your reviews. Like, yes, you can get good reviews and bad reviews based on your piercing, based on your jewelry, but I think people are going to be a lot more prone to review based on the purely customer service element of it. So it's
Yes.
really reinforcing when you get those positive reviews where it's like, yeah, yeah, they did a good piercing. But anyway, this person was lovely and I had such a
Yeah.
great experience and I want to send all my friends back to that person. And it's like, that's awesome. Like that makes me feel so good because like people can do good piercings and be jerks. And then like the clients, like they're
Yeah.
going to leave with a good piercing, but they're not really going to leave with a smile or a good experience. So I think that
Oh,
the bedside manner, customer service side of it is so important, and I hope that everybody's really paying attention to that stuff.
like 100%. It also is your safety net. Like I don't know that I've ever gotten a bad review. If I have, it's probably deep in there, but they're very rare. They're always about being nice. They always are. Because even if you get it wrong, which we're all going to get it wrong at some point, if you were really cool, if you were really transparent, you were really kind to them, they're not really that worried about it as long as they left with it being correct. You missed your angle, you're super nice about it, they're laughing, you redo it, they're still happy when they leave. Versus you can give them the most incredible piercing of their life. You can go out and eat the best meal of your life, but if the server was a jerk the whole time, you're still going to be in a bad mood.
Right.
That stings a little more. That sticks with you a little longer.
Yeah, it's a good way to phrase it, like safety net, because I don't know how you get piercers to talk about the minor mistakes. Like sometimes there might be larger mistakes, and I would look at those as like those are the rare accidents. Every piercer has had
Yeah,
one, hopefully, maybe earlier in their career, but the minor mistakes are ones that even really experienced piercers have. Like, like an end piece doesn't sit perfectly flat, or you missed a mark by like 1 millimeter and it just doesn't look right. Stuff like
yeah,
that happens from time to time. And just like you said, like if the client trusts you, and trusts that like you're looking out for their safety, but also like their money and all the other things that go into just the
yeah,
respect elements, those little mistakes are like nothing to them, just in the way that where
yeah.
it's like nothing to a piercer. Like you can correct it and they can still be happy, and like that stuff's happened to me, and that's a great point for you to bring up.
Yeah, I think it's also like realizing that you're not like in this like separate universe when you're at work. Like I'm a member of my community. I'm gonna see this person at the coffee shop. I'm gonna see them at the grocery store. Like especially the longer you work in the same town, like putting in a decade at just about a decade at the current studio. Like I see all these people everywhere.
Yeah,
Like I don't want to be rude to them and then run into them somewhere else. Like but
they'll
like
spit in your food.
yeah, like you're really kind to them, and then you show up at their coffee shop and you get something free. It's
Yeah,
like it's just way easier to always be nice. Like
yeah, yeah,
um, I've done a bunch of like self-defense and conflict avoidance courses. Like I take everyone I can find, and like it really is like that simple. Like just kill them with kindness. There's no competition to win. You don't have to outrude them. You don't have to prove your point. Like that really ultimately doesn't matter. Um, if this thing isn't going to like cause you harm or actually lose you a bunch of money in some way, like just you're right, sure. like I don't know, smile
yeah,
it away is generally
yeah,
my approach. But
yeah.
yeah,
That's a pretty good approach. Um, to kind of like pivot over into like the studio security side of it, I haven't had a lot of incidents in my studio, but I haven't had zero incidents in my
yeah,
studio. And something that you kind of brought up is like the most important thing isn't the jewelry or your tablets or whatever things,
yeah,
like
no,
things can be replaced, and like, the staff can't be, and also sometimes trust can't be replaced. So,
one hundred
uh,
percent.
like what goes into like some of the things that you would want studios to think about? Because like again, before and after COVID, like I'm completely rethinking my studio lobby, and just like the way I'm kind of trusting, but also having a little bit of like backup and verification along with that trust.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, there's like a lot of different things that go into it. Like it could be like layout, like simple things like that, or um, again, it could just go to be into being really kind and being really transparent with your things. But there's also like simple things that you could apply. Like most like security agencies would suggest using like off-brand devices. That's a big thing that we use. Like we use like Chromebooks and like Square tablets versus like iPads and MacBooks and things that are really desirable. Just those simple things because when you're in an economic decline, people get desperate.
Yeah.
And we're a business just like every other business. We have the same risk as a jewelry store. We have the same risk as a gas station. It's I think sometimes we forget that like there's not a whole lot stopping a person from robbing any place that they want. So if you can just be less desirable, I think
Hmm.
that plays a big role into it. And just generally listening to your staff's like if you're a business owner, your staff is there more than you traditionally, right? At least some level of them is in the building more often than you are, and they're going to notice things. And it could be something as simple as you operate a locked door when the sun goes down, because that's when you're most likely to be robbed. It could be like we take the trash to a dumpster in the back alley and we do that in teams. Simple little things like that are just like your standard elementary school safety stuff, like the buddy system and
Yeah.
lights. And yeah, um, just more so like I have been attempting to teach people just like little changes they can make to just overall increase safety. And yeah,
Yeah. There's some things I don't know, and it's not like I'm trying to plug it, but I don't know if you've ever seen Lola's predicting and preventing predatory behavior class, but
no, no, that sounds sick though.
it's free. It's totally
Yeah,
free. But there were a bunch of different things that kind of she said from her perspective of the city she's in, the kind of clientele, the people who might be in her city, and trying to like learn a lot of those things about, okay, yeah, maybe I could do this a little bit better for my staff. And part of it is just like the simple little things of like if people call and they say, oh, hi, when is Cosmo available? I'm not going to give them like your exact schedule and say like,
Yeah,
well, he's going to be walking to his car at this exact time.
yeah, yeah,
It's
absolutely.
like the little things of like, well, their last appointment is available at 7. What can we do for you? Like stuff like
Yeah,
that. Lights, like that's a big thing for me. I had a lot of like people that were just kind of hanging around like my shop and the alley behind it at night, and then just putting in motion lights stopped all
yeah.
that. So little
Like
simple things like don't,
people breaking the law want privacy, and if you can
yeah,
remove privacy from, like,
yeah. And like I think as a studio owner, you have to look at it, repeatedly every couple of years, or you have somebody else look at it with fresh eyes
yeah,
and think like, well, what have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Or even just changing your existing things just a little bit to make them more efficiently. And I've felt way better about my studio because like being the person who owns the business, like I could just be staying up all night every night with anxiety, but I don't because like I've got my security system, I've got my security policies. I know that my people are trained to protect their safety and the safety of the people around them, and then I can sleep well at night.
yeah. I mean, I think a lot of that does come down to training and just having everybody on the same page. Like, what happens if something does happen? Like, you got to have those conversations and be like really clear about it. One of the things that I've mentioned in that class is like, if they ask for something, just give it to them. Like you ideally you have really good business insurance. If you don't, you should get really good business insurance. You don't have like hurt employee or hurt customer insurance. Like so, just let them have that thing and like have everybody on board with how you're going to handle that. Like what happens before, during, after some sort of incident. Like at what point do you ask somebody to leave? At what point do you make somebody leave? Like
Hmm.
having all of that be really transparent about your expectations so there's no like unknowns is really good. And
Yeah.
I think also just being like communities and the crime within them, there's like ebbs and flows and just being in touch with your community, like whether it's next door or like some Facebook group and just kind of knowing what's going on. Like um generally crime isn't like one place only. It's gonna happen all around. Like if there's a lot of cars getting broken into, it's gonna be in one cluster of time, one area. It's the same person probably or the same group of people. If the place down the street had an incident, chances are they're going to move down the street, if they weren't caught. So just knowing that and just adjusting accordingly.
Yeah. Yeah. I think like remembering that piercing businesses are part of a community. Like I've been in the same location, essentially. Like my studio has moved. It's like this is my third studio, but they've all been within one block. I've just moved for like bigger spaces. So I feel
Yeah.
really connected to that community after being there for 24 years now at this point.
Yeah.
So like I have relationships with other business owners where I can talk to them. And if something like that were to happen, if there was a problem in the area, like I would hear about it, I would know about it, I could stay alert, but also like keeping yourself plugged into the community where it's like, I think your neighbor can feel a little bit safer knowing your name and you knowing theirs and knowing that everybody
Yeah.
can kind of look out for each other. Like at my house, like the nice woman across the street looks at my house, so like even if a package shows up that I don't notice, they're like, oh yeah, don't forget there's an Amazon on the side of your porch. And it's like, okay, thanks, it's good to have
Yeah.
like a neighbor, like whether it's your business or whether it's your home.
Yeah, I think that goes both ways into like making sure you're being that person for them. Like
Yeah.
we're in a strip mall and we often get calls from like the other end of the strip mall that's like, hey, weird guy just tried to come in and do something in our building. Like he's
Yeah.
walking towards you. We don't
Yeah.
know. Or like you hear a ruckus down there and you just poke your head out. Like generally the more eyes that are on a potential crime, the less likely it is to happen. Um, so yeah, I think that also comes into like how much staff you have on. Like I think at this point we all know we shouldn't just have solo shifts.
Yeah.
Nobody should be in the building alone. Ideally, nobody should even be in the lobby alone if you can afford the manpower. But yeah,
Person power.
yeah, person power, all the eyes.
um so like uh oh, I had a whole thought there and I lost it. My other big thing that I really like is investing in camera technology because like I've
Yeah.
gone through a bunch of different generations of that. I had my original security camera was actually the one that would like write on a VCR and you would rewrite and overwrite the tapes.
Sick.
And then it yeah, and then it turned into like more of like a hard drive system, and now it's like a cloud system, and it's great because like you always have that peace of mind where it's like if I felt nervous, I could just open my phone, I could just look at the shop, I could potentially get notifications if anything did happen that was like weird or fishy or suspicious, or I just wanted to double check something, I can go back and I can just check it at any time. And like that technology is really good, and it's really good to like revisit that technology because like you don't want to have a 10-year-old security system, you always
Yeah.
want to like recheck it.
And it progresses so quickly. Like the
Yeah.
technology is like skyrocketing now. Like modern cameras are not only sensing movement, they're sensing what kind of movement. Like you can, like the ones at my house, I can filter out like animals above a certain weight.
Yeah, that's
So it's
weird.
like,
Like I on mine, I had an incident where somebody did try to leave with one of our tablets. Like I
yeah,
bought one of those cheap like Amazon Fire like $90 tablets, but it's like still
yeah,
somebody tried to walk off with it. And they didn't but it's because we just kind of said something really subtle like, "Oh, I think maybe you might have misplaced our tablet. Do you happen to know where it is? No? Okay, well, we can just check the security camera and see where you might have put it down by accident." And they were like, "Oh, I think I left it in the bathroom." And then it appeared,
yeah.
and it's like,
They
okay,
found
great.
it in the bathroom. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but it's like, having that technology to like actually check, so maybe you're not making a mistake or something.
Yeah, and confirming that those things are functioning. Like the amount of
Yeah.
times that like especially Bluetooth cameras are going to go offline or the power flickers just enough where the hub drops off and just having those kind of things happen. One of the things that I showed in the class was just redundancy. If
Hmm.
you have like one camera that's depending on Wi-Fi, maybe have another that's just recording onto a tape or something,
Yeah.
because all technology can fail. So if you have two different technologies like in that overlap, you have a higher chance of them not failing completely.
Yeah, totally. All right, so we talked about bedside manner and studio security. Something else that I would want to ask you about is the work that you do with the membership committee, because like going back again to my experience on the board, I always remember like the membership committee was seen as like the champagne of boards because it was like that's where a lot of the work had to happen. Like if you think of it, it's like that's how the organization grows. It's like all the work through the membership committee.
Yeah.
I would imagine that like if you've been there for quite a while, you've seen a million different kinds of questions, a million different kinds of studio layouts, all different kinds of like localized complications and problems and stuff. So
Yeah.
what are some of the different things that maybe you would want people to understand about the membership committee if they're kind of on the outside looking into the organization?
Um, I think if you're attempting to gain membership, first understanding that like we're there to help. People a lot of times, I mean, I get a lot of emails or DMs, which I welcome wholeheartedly, but they're always started with like some huge apology for bothering me,
Mhm.
as if I didn't sign up to do this intentionally. Like every single person that's on the committee is like super down for you to reach out. And I think they don't understand that we've seen it all, good and bad. So like if you have something that you're not necessarily proud of, like we understand that everybody starts somewhere and they grow. So like you don't have to hide things. You can be like, hey, I have no walls, or I use this jewelry from a magazine or whatever. Like none of that is going to offend me. There's like several different ways to do this, and my goal is just to help you do like the best possible. And like what's most possible for me might not be most possible for the person down the street. Like we all have different things afforded to us. So um, even if you're like not applying for membership and still would like a little bit of like advice, I'm totally down to help you out with the hope that someday you'll get all the way there and apply. So like that for sure, like we're always down to help. So you don't have to feel bad or be embarrassed. But as far as the actual application process, I think the thing that probably comes up the most is hand washing sinks. We define like the hand washing sink as like in the studio, so like in the piercing room or like a reasonable unobstructed distance from that area. And that's kind of there's a lot of gray area for that. Oftentimes, if we have to tell somebody no, it's mostly because their hand washing sink it's like over in a tattoo station there's several doors in the way. And we end up doing a lot of talk about sinks, really. Um, I think that might be the biggest stuff. Jewelry for sure. I think a lot of people think that if a jewelry company isn't verified in our program, that those are then it just doesn't apply. But that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah.
We hope for every good jewelry manufacturer to get verified, but there are several that are up to standard and not verified yet. Whether it's just because they just haven't yet, or maybe they're even unaware. But You can still apply with what you have, and no matter what it is, even if you're uncertain, and we'll help you out with it because some stuff might still be okay. There might be a way to pivot it. We might have brand suggestions. Yeah, I think that's all in all. It's just that like there's no reason to be embarrassed. There's no reason to be worried. We're not judging you. Me personally, I'm processing way too many applications to judge an individual. I'm just like, what do you got? All right, let's go through it. Like, I have the spreadsheet, you have the spreadsheet. Let's see where you have holes and try to fill them, whether it's filling them now or filling them in the future. And then sometimes they're unfillable. Like it sucks, but every now and again, I'm like, hey man, if you want this, you have to get a new job. Like this place will never do it. The hurdle is too big, whether it's your employer or whether it's the overall building. We had an application, I believe, last year where they couldn't have a hand washing sink because the building was a historic site, so they weren't allowed
So,
to
quick
damage the.
question: what was it in the U.S. or out of the U.S.?
I do not recall.
Okay, because like
Uh,
I talked to plenty of piercers in other countries, and like
yeah,
especially piercers in the UK, a lot of
yeah,
them are stuck with those like buildings that were put up 400
yeah.
years ago,
In
and
like
like
the
you're not allowed to
1700s,
change a
yeah,
single thing.
yeah. So they can't alter plumbing, they can't touch a wall,
Yeah.
and for some of them, we can do like adhesive mounts to hang things. Like you just have this double-sided tape to hang this thing that you're not allowed to put a shelf on, and things like that. But some things aren't insurmountable. Like you got to have a sink, and
Yeah.
sometimes it's like. It could be as simple as sometimes we've had people use like camp sinks that they fill with water from a spot and then it drains into a separate container that is dumped in an appropriate spot. There are workarounds, but sometimes there's not.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I get it if people are self-conscious, nervous to reach out. Like a lot of times I'll get private messages and it'll be like, "Oh, hey, I'm looking for help with membership." And I always want to tell them like, "Well, have you emailed the membership committee?" Because
Okay.
it's
Yeah.
like
Like we're
it's
so
not like
willing.
your job isn't to keep people out, it's to help people get in because it's like that's the
Yeah.
only way that the organization grows. So, yeah, even if someone out there is like a prospective member and not necessarily ready to apply, but if they're just kind of like they're trying to get there as a
That's the
long-term
best.
goal.
Like,
Like they
yeah.
should reach out.
I think that's the best because it's it's easier to start from somewhere. Like it's easier to get them early on before they make decisions that they might have to unmake.
Mhm.
I think the particular volunteer positions I have kind of like perfectly slotted me to be really helpful because at first I'm a conference mentor. So I'm getting first year people who are brand new to it. I foster that relationship and then they feel comfortable reaching out to me for those membership questions. I then will hopefully get them to be a member. And then like my final task is I'm on the social media committee. So like as soon as they're members, I'm sharing their stuff. I've had a few people that have gone the whole thing with me, and that's just super cool. It's like, oh, you're here and you're scared because all these people, and now you're one of these people, and now you're really one of these people.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, it's
Yeah.
cool.
I really enjoy that. It's very satisfying. It makes me feel really rooted to the piercer community when I get to see people grow in that way. So it's like, like Royce and like a lot of other people, um, seeing them or like meeting them at a certain point in their progression, their journey, and then like watching them like continue their progression and continue their journey and like seeing people where I might have met them like very early, like a nascent point in their career, and now they're on committees or they're instructing classes or they're on the board or running for the board, all these different things. And it's just like it's so impressive to see it because I know how hard and how long they've worked for it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, and ultimately, that's kind of what I'm here for. Like, if I do a helix piercing with a piece and you do a helix piercing with the same piece, they're probably going to look the same. And after this many years, that's not horribly interesting to me. But like, people are all different and their experiences are all different, and that's just way more entertaining and way more engaging. So I want to meet those early people and hopefully give them some advice to help their journey be easier because at times mine wasn't very easy. So if I can give them a shortcut, that's great. Plenty of people helped me out. So I think it's like we have to graduate and take that role. Like I was helped, now I'm the helper. And then someday Royce is the helper, and I think that's how communities grow and continue. And it's just
Yeah.
trying to play my role while I'm here.
Yeah. I feel the same way because like I remember the first time I was exposed to certain information or whatever, and just being like, wow, like seeing people that are already at the level that I really wanted to get to and trying to learn from them. And then maybe eventually you get to kind of like look at them as more of a peer rather than like a goal?
I think it's like it takes some like self-reflection and understanding that like maybe you're not as special as you think you are, you know, like this person is your peer, you know, it's their first year, but they are your peer. They're in the same industry. They're both humans in the same country, standing in the same place, you know, like treating them really regular uh, allows to kind of break down those walls, you know, like, and it's also being transparent about the fact that like if you're that piercer who sells nothing but gold and has like 3-digit tickets every single time, you weren't always that person, most likely.
Yeah.
And the more transparent we are about that, the more like self-esteem they can have at their current position in it. It's like I was there, I was doing $25 piercings, I was doing every single special for every holiday, and like I was working 6 days a week at a shop that didn't appreciate me. Like I've gone through it all, you know. I get it. I get like feeling like insecure about a certain thing, but I think the more kindness the industry can give to those people, the more we'll break down those barriers and we can kind of stop that. Like I want people that come to conference for their first year to feel really comfortable immediately because I've already been kind to them on the internet. I've already like their piercing, even if it had like a lesser brand jewelry in it. If it's a good angle, it's a good angle. Like I'll often just search piercing hashtags and just like things that look nice.
Mm.
Intentionally avoiding my friends because they already know that they're good, you know? It's like, oh, stranger, cool, that looks good. Good for you. Because if I have any kind of real importance, I bet it feels good to see me like your thing. Because I've been there. I remember getting likes from like you or other people that were like bigger than me. And it's just like, oh, they noticed. That's like nobody wants to feel invisible. So if we can like shine a light on those people, they'll keep trying and they'll feel more comfortable to ask questions and try to be better.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great way to look at it because like I think it's a shame when piercers who are early into their career feel like they're not capable of these things that they see other people achieve. And it's like, well, it took this person 5 years, it took this person 10 years. If you're only 2 years into it, like you have to
Oh,
believe in yourself.
yeah.
You have to stay on a path and you have to stay engaged with the kind of work that you want to do and do it to the best ability. So yeah, all that stuff is fantastic. And I just, I appreciate trying to keep people inspired.
Yeah, like you gotta, you know, like if we like gatekeep and like hold everybody outside of our cool kids club, then who's gonna run the club when we graduate, you know?
Right.
Like
Because
there's
nobody
always
likes
just
feeling that way. Like, I don't
yeah,
like feeling like I'm on that other side of like, you're not good enough. Everybody
yeah,
knows what that feeling is, and it doesn't feel good for anybody.
terrible.
So it's like,
It's like
why would you want to be the person putting that
guilty
out
of it.
there in the
Like this
world?
this isn't high school. We're not seniors, they're not freshmen. Like we're for the most part all adults.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and it's also like I feel like a lot of times I'll see like quote unquote bad jewelry in a really good piercing and then really good jewelry in a bad piercing. And it's like ultimately the first one sounds better to me, you know? Like it really does. Like, is that one gonna heal? Probably. Is this other one gonna heal? Probably not. Like
Yeah.
you can't gold away your angle, you know? So like so like I'm like I want to encourage those people because those people, if they don't have the jewelry to just like flex on their friends with, they are, at least in my opinion, they tend to be more focused on getting it right, you know? At least ideally.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
But
Well, that's kind of all the questions I have for you. So is there anything else on your mind that you'd want to hit on?
no, I think we covered everything, right? That's all the stuff I do, right?
Well, I'm sure that's not all the stuff you do, but like, yeah,
Uh,
that's a lot of stuff that you are doing. So
yeah.
yeah,
I
I
mean,
hope that you're
it's
also
kind of all the
sleeping at
same
some point.
stuff. Just trying to help people.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
So if people want to reach out to the membership committee, what's the most effective way for them to do that?
I think at least for me, directly, everybody that's on the membership committee is advertised on the website. You can figure out all the members of that. And most of us are pretty cool with you contacting us directly. For me, the best way is Instagram. I reply to those way quicker. Um, I am one of the people that has a formal APP email address, but it tends to be bogged down with like the business side of things. So that's like probably the worst place for
Okay.
like I tend to be like I want these to be more personal interactions, you know. Like I don't like putting on the business face. Like you're just a regular person who wants to ask a question of a friend, you know. So you can totally DM me. That's easiest for me. I think
Cool.
everybody else would agree.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, it's good to know that that's how you like to interact with people because like everybody has their preferences. Yeah, I know like some people are just like just email or just
Yeah.
do this or just do that. Um, so just safepiercing.org through like the membership info.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all there. Yeah. I think everybody that's currently on the membership committee is like, we've kind of formed our group to be kind of like-minded people where we're all like, oh yeah, we're down to help. Like, just hit me up,
That's
like
great.
any possible way you could contact a person that's on the committee, they're probably cool with it. Um,
Cool.
I just say social media tends to be better for me because my email address is so filled with other things that like
Mm,
it's way more likely to get lost there.
yeah.
But yeah.
Cool. What about the studio? Like what is your piercing Instagram and what's the studio
Uh,
information?
Yeah, the studio Instagram is Virtue and Vice Piercing, and my personal Instagram is XCOZMOX because still straight edge somehow.
Mhm.
But yeah, both of those are active and going.
Cool.
Yeah,
Awesome. All right. Well, I appreciate you giving me a little bit of your very busy time.
yeah, yeah. My pleasure. I appreciate being on here.
Cool. All right. Well, it was good talking to you, man.
Yeah, you too.
All right. See ya. For more information about the show, visit piercingwizardpodcast.com or like Piercing Wizard Podcast on Facebook. For more info about your host, visit precisionbodyarts.com or search Ryan PBA on Facebook, Instagram, and Tumblr. If you enjoy the show, you can subscribe on iTunes, Apple Podcast, and Google Play. Music by Benny B. Blanco. Show copyright 2017, Precision Body Arts LLC, all rights reserved.